She placed the premium steakhouse boxes down on the table like some royal decree. 4 boxes only each for Ryan, Linda, Frank, and herself. Then she pointed a perfectly manicured finger toward the plastic bag next to the microwave. "That one's for you and your mom," she said flatly. Inside were 2 microwavable TV dinner trays, shrimp Alfredo, and something unrecognizably mushy. $2.99 stickers still clinging to the plastic wrap. My stomach turned, not from hunger. "You're kidding," I muttered, mostly to myself. Linda didn't look at me, just popped open her steak box, the smell of truffle butter and seared ribeye already filling the room. "You did say you didn't care what we ate," she added, chewing slowly. "Didn't want to be a burden." I had said that weeks ago, in passing, when I still thought I had to earn her kindness. My mom glanced at Mequiat, tight-lipped. She hadn't said a word since we arrived from Chicago, 2 hours by train, dragging a bag of gifts and half-baked hope. I could see it in her eyes though, the shame, the sting. This wasn't just rude, it was intentional. I stood up. "Ryan," I said, "we're leaving." He looked up, fork paused midair. "Emily." "No," I snapped. "This is insane. You call us out here, make my mom sit through this, and feed us leftover trash while the rest of you eat $50 steaks from Oak and Vine?" Linda dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "If you're going to act dramatic every time someone doesn't cater to your expectations." I didn't expect hospitality, I cut in. I expected basic human decency. Guess that was naive. I helped my mom up and headed toward the door. For a second, I thought Ryan would follow, but he sat frozen, torn. It hit me then. I'd been trying. Too hard, playing nice, thinking if I swallowed just one more insult, she'd finally see me as family. But she never wanted a daughter-in-law. She wanted a subordinate. From that moment, I stopped pretending. "She's your mother," I told Ryan as we stepped outside. "But she disrespected my mother in our presence. I don't forgive that." He said nothing, but 2 days later, he canceled the $3,000 he was wiring Linda every month, reduced it to $1,000. No more tuition repayments. No more guilt payments for being the golden child. Linda called him 27 times that weekend, left voicemails that started weepy and ended furious. He didn't answer. Instead, we sat in our small apartment, heating up leftover chili. My mom laughed at something on the radio, finally relaxed. "She always thought I wasn't good enough for you," I said, poking at the chili. Ryan looked at me, serious for once. She was wrong, and for the first time in years, I believed it. She walked in, loud and exhausted. The kind of entrance that demands everyone else stop what they're doing and orbit around her mood. "Ugh, I'm beat. Ryan, get the bags." Frank stood up immediately, clearly used to this performance. I half rose from the couch. "I can help," I offered. "No, you're fine," Frank replied quickly. "You're a guest." But that word guest thing in the air like a warning. In this house, being a guest meant staying out of the way. Not helpful, not involved. Just watched and judged. Linda stepped into the living room moments later. Her eyes scanned the space like a manager checking for smudges. Then she saw me. "Oh, Ryan, you're already here." Her eyes flicked down at me, still seated, then back up. "And this is?" I stood up, awkwardly, offering a small nod. "Emily, Ryan's girlfriend." "Girlfriend," she repeated, with a dry chuckle. "You're the one?" She didn't need to say more. The way her eyebrow arched said enough. Ryan stiffened beside me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," she shrugged. "I just assumed someone a bit more polished. You're a doctor, after all. Plenty of options." That word option spurned more than anything else. Like I was a mistake he'd settled on. A consolation prize. I tried to keep my tone steady. "It's nice to meet you, Mum." Still sitting when someone's standing. "That's not how I raised my son." She shot back, smirking. "And you didn't even offer to help with the luggage. Kind of tells me what kind of girl you are." I bit the inside of my cheek. So this was how it was going to be. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. "I did offer," I said quietly. "She's being polite, Mom," Ryan snapped. "You're the one being rude." Linda turned to him, all innocence. "I just want what's best for you. And frankly, a woman with better manners and family background wouldn't hurt." It was a clean slap wrapped in pearls. And for a split second, I doubted myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was out of place here. But then Ryan looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. "You're embarrassing yourself." I stood up, calm but cold. "You know what? I think I'll leave now. Thank you for the warm welcome." I didn't wait for permission. Just walked past her, nodding politely to Frank, who peeked out from the kitchen. She didn't stop me. She didn't apologize. And that was all I needed to know. Outside, the air was colder than I expected. Ryan caught up to me halfway down the driveway. "I'm sorry," he said, breathless. I didn't look at him. "You should be, but not for me. For the way she just sabotaged any chance of knowing your future family." He was quiet. For once, he didn't defend her. That silence told me everything. The first real call from Linda came the night we moved into our new apartment in Chicago. We'd just gotten back from our honeymoon, still half unpacked, pizza boxes on the counter, and wedding gifts stacked in corners. When the phone rang, I was still in sweatpants, hair tied up, hoping for a quiet night. "Hi, Emily. So have you settled in yet?" Her tone was light, but I'd learned by then that sweetness from her was never without strings. "Yes, we just finished unpacking the essentials." There was a pause, the kind that carries a smirk. "I hope you're keeping the place tidy. And you are cooking, right? A real wife doesn't live off takeout." I gripped the phone tighter. "I do cook, actually. Ryan enjoys it." "Well, newlyweds always say that," she replied, too casually. "It's the compliments that keep you trying, not the taste." My jaw clenched. I bit down the retort building in my throat. "Don't react. That's what she wants." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "Is there something you needed?" "Oh, right," she said, as if it had just occurred to her. "I wanted to talk to you about something a little delicate." Translation: I'm about to cross a boundary and pretend it's concern. She launched into a monologue about Frank's wholesale food business. Apparently, revenue was down. "Just a little support from you two would go a long way," she said. "You know, family helping family." I didn't say anything, just looked over at Ryan. He caught the look. "Who is it?" "Your mom," I whispered. "She's saying your dad's business is struggling." Before I could finish, Ryan reached out and took the phone from me. "Mom, I'm listening. You're asking for more money?" I blinked. "More. She's been sending $1,500 a month to cover my tuition." "Since when?" His tone was calm, but deadly. Linda must have panicked, because I heard her voice rise slightly through the receiver. "Oh honey, it's not about the money. It's your education, your future. My tuition was covered by Dad." He cut in. "If you're struggling, say that. Don't wrap it in guilt and lies." There was a pause. Then came the real reason. "Well, if we tell your father we're struggling, it'll just stress him out. I'm the one who handles the finances, you know that. It's better this way." I watched Ryan's face harden. "So you want me to fund your financial secrecy?" "No. If you need help, talk to Dad. Or get a financial planner." He hung up without another word. I sat in silence, stunned. The woman who mocked my cooking and measured my worth in chores had been pocketing thousands behind everyone's back. "She's not going to stop," I said quietly. "No," Ryan said, "but neither are we." Ryan and his mother argued for over 15 minutes while I sat across from him, watching the tension in his jaw grow tighter with each sentence. Eventually, he sighed and said what she wanted to hear. "Fine, I'll increase the remittance. $3,000 total, $1,500 for you. $1,500 goes into Dad's account for the so-called tuition repayment." He locked eyes with me as he said it, as if to say, "I'm handling it. Just give me time." On the other end of the line, Linda's voice turned soft and smug. "Well, that sounds reasonable." Except it wasn't. It was manipulation disguised as a family obligation. I did the math after he hung up. $3,000 a month. That's a second rent payment, a mortgage in some parts of Illinois. The national average for parental support? Barely a third of that. But Linda wasn't after fairness, was after control. Later that night, I asked him quietly, "Is your family really struggling that badly?" He hesitated. "It's true the company's been under pressure, but I started sending money back once I became a doctor before we were even married. Ryan made decent money, around $10,000 a month. Add my pharmacist income to that, and we weren't hurting. But still, this wasn't generosity. This was extortion layered in guilt. "I'll cover it," he said. "It's my responsibility. And I married you, which makes it mine too." "I get it," I said. "But if we're paying that much, it needs to be honest. Not a secret I find out over dinner." He nodded, apologetic, grateful. And for a while, I pushed myself harder at work, convincing myself it was for the family that raised the man I loved. But then the phone call started again. "You two should come visit more," she said once. "It's been months." "I'd love to," I replied, "but my schedule's been packed." "Oh please, you work at a CVS. You can take a break whenever you want." She didn't know or care that I was a licensed pharmacist, not a retail cashier. To her, my career would never measure up. And then came the kicker. "You're working too, aren't you? Then how about you send a little extra my way? Not just Ryan. You." I blinked. "We've been sending $3,000 a month together." She paused. "You've been part of that?" "Yes." A deep, judgmental sigh followed. "Useless. You don't cook. You don't come home. And now I hear you won't even give birth. Maybe Ryan needs someone better." And with that, she hung up. My hand was still on the receiver, but something in me finally let go. Not of Ryan, but of the illusion that civility could fix this. I didn't block her. I didn't stop taking her calls. I just started recording every one. Because if she wanted to treat this like a transaction, I was ready to keep receipts. I was the one who came up with the idea. Uncle Joe runs multiple restaurants across Chicago, and Frank's wholesale business had been struggling for months. It just made sense to connect them. Let business handle what family couldn't. If the deal worked, maybe Linda would finally back off. It did work. Sales improved, contracts were signed, and Frank's company started turning a solid profit again. I thought that would be enough to reduce the $1,500 monthly remittance we were sending. I was wrong. Ryan called his mom to gently suggest adjusting the amount. Her response was immediate. "Oh, honey, even if the company's doing well, you don't understand how long it takes for profits to reflect in payroll. This isn't how business works." Translation: "I like your money, and I'm not giving it up." She never thanked me. Not once. I'd brokered a deal that literally saved their business. And somehow I was still just the girl who doesn't cook enough. After several more attempts to reason with her, I gave up trying to make it fair. Instead, I asked my mom for advice. "She's not listening to reason," I said. "What do I even do with someone like that?" My mom, always calm, always too kind, said, "Talk to her again. From the heart. She's your mother-in-law. That has to mean something." But it doesn't, I thought. Not when she sees me as a threat, not a daughter. So I waited. And one night, just after dinner, I got a call. I saw the name flash across the screen and braced myself. Linda. But it wasn't her. It was Frank. "Sorry to bother you, Emily. My wife wants to invite your whole family to dinner. She said it's to thank you, especially your uncle, for all the help." I paused. "Linda, gratitude? In English? Even my mom and Uncle Joe?" I asked. "She insisted," he said. "Said she wanted to do something proper." Now that was suspicious. If it had just been me and Ryan, I'd have assumed it was another trap. But Uncle Joe was involved, and Linda knew how important he was to Frank's business. She wouldn't risk embarrassing herself in front of him. I called my mom and Joe. They both agreed to go. "Are you sure about this, Em?" Ryan asked as we packed. "I wouldn't blame you for walking away." "She won't try anything," I said. "Not with Uncle Joe there. She needs his business more than she needs to hate me." But deep down, I knew this wasn't just dinner. This was a stage. And if Linda thought she could perform civility in front of the man who kept her husband's company afloat, I'd be sitting front row ready to clap or cut the act clean. The moment we stepped into the house, Linda greeted us with a syrupy smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you made it," she said, as if we'd arrived uninvited. I nodded, politely. My mother beside me bowed her head slightly, still trying, still believing this woman might one day accept me. Meanwhile, Frank and Uncle Joe were chatting at the door, their voices friendly, easy. "Thanks again for the partnership," Frank said warmly. "We've really turned things around since then." Uncle Joe laughed. "Emily told me it might help, but I didn't expect it to go this well. They made it look simple: respect, gratitude, collaboration. All the things Linda had never once offered. We headed toward the living room where Ryan and Linda were already seated. I greeted her formally. "It's good to see you again." "Yes, yes, how's work?" she replied with a vague wave of her hand, already looking past me. Then she stood up. I assumed she was going to prepare the food, and I instinctively moved to help. "Oh, that's not necessary. Your guests," she said with a smile that had edges. The kind of smile that says sit down and stay in your place. I hesitated but nodded and returned to my seat. Moments later, my mom appeared from the hallway, holding 3 lacquered wooden boxes. I recognized the Logook and Vine, one of the most exclusive takeout spots in the area. Each box easily cost $50. 3 boxes. She placed them carefully on the table, aligning them neatly in front of Ryan, Frank, and Linda. Then came the kicker to a microwavable TV dinner trays slid casually onto the end of the table, right in front of me and my mother. "Picked them up from the store this morning," Linda said sweetly. "They're healthy. And well, you probably don't mind simple food." The silence was suffocating. My mother's hands were still folded in her lap. Her face remained composed, but I knew that stillness it was her way of holding pain. I looked up. "Linda, I thought you invited us to thank us." "I did," she said, blinking innocently. "This is thanks. Those steakhouse boxes are for family." "And we're not?" I asked quietly. Her smile widened. "You married into this family, Emily. You weren't born into it. That did it." I stood up. "Mom, let's go." Ryan looked stunned. "Emily, wait." "No," I said firmly. "She called us here during our only shared holiday. She humiliated my mother in your childhood home. I'm not staying where we're fed scraps and called outsiders." I helped my mom to her feet, calm but shaking. I had come here thinking maybe we could try again, that maybe gratitude and peace could coexist. But Linda had made herself clear. Her power came from belittling others, especially the women who threatened her illusion of control. Frank met us in the hall, surprised. "Emily, is something wrong?" I looked him in the eye. "Ask your wife why the guests she thanked were served microwave dinners, while her business partner dined like royalty." And with that, I walked out, hand in hand with my mother. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. But I made sure she'd feel the cold air that followed. "We've decided to head out," I said, my voice clipped and calm. "What? You're leaving?" Linda blinked, fake confusion spreading across her face like perfume maquillage and overpowering. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, not even giving her the dignity of eye contact. "Emily, wait, what happened?" Frank asked, catching my sleeve as I passed. "I'll explain later," I said quietly. "But this isn't something we'll brush under the rug." Behind me, I heard Ryan's footsteps catching up. "Emily," he called, breath short, "I'm coming with you." I turned to face him. "Are you sure?" He nodded, jaw tight. "I've never been more sure. What she did, I can't defend it anymore." He looked back toward the living room where Linda sat, likely still savoring the chaos she created. But this time, Ryan didn't flinch. He turned to Frank and said, "Dad, I'm done. Whatever happens now, I'm not protecting her from the consequences." Frank looked stunned. "What are you talking about?" "Ask her," Ryan replied flatly. "But don't expect me to be the buffer anymore. She crossed a line and I'm cutting her off." The last thing we heard before the door closed behind us was Frank shouting Linda's name. We left the house in silence. Outside, the spring air felt cold but clean. Uncle Joe and my mom returned to the Amtrak station. Ryan and I had planned to stay the night at his parents' house, so we had no hotel booked and every train and bus was full. "I guess we're not going home tonight," he said. "You could come to my mom's," I offered. He gave a small, grateful nod. "Yeah, let's do that." That night, we stayed at my childhood home, in the spare bedroom I hadn't slept in since college. And as we unpacked the bags we hadn't planned to carry back so soon, Ryan's phone buzzed again. Linda, again. 17 missed calls in less than 2 hours. He didn't answer. Neither did I when she tried me next. We ignored every call, every message. And the silence felt right. The voicemails turned into texts, then into long, rambling emails. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Please forgive me. You misunderstood." But eventually, the tone shifted. "I'm sorry, but I need help. I'm struggling financially." Can't you just send the usual amount? Just until things stabilize. There it was. The truth behind the sudden remorse money. Ryan read the message aloud. I didn't even look up from folding laundry. So still no contact, he asked. She's not family, remember, I said, folding the last shirt. Just someone we used to know who made herself a stranger. He didn't argue. Weeks passed. Frank never reached out, which told us everything we needed to know. Linda was on her own now. And for once, that wasn't my problem. I first heard the yelling from the back room. Where is she? Bring her out. I know she's here. I knew that voice before I even stood up. I didn't need to check the cameras or ask anyone. I felt it in my gut. Linda. In my pharmacy. During a shift. By the time I got to the store floor, 2 employees were trying to calm her down near the registers. She was thrashing, shouting, pointing around the store like she was searching for stolen jewelry. There, she screamed. That's my daughter-in-law. That one. I don't remember walking toward her. I remember the heat rising to my ears and the eyes of customers, all turning toward me. Some looked confused. Others whispered, "Is that her mother-in-law?" Yikes. Drama at CVS. I took a slow breath and spoke quietly to the assistant manager. Call the police. She's not leaving on her own. Butch says she's family. Exactly. That's why you need to call. As soon as the word police was mentioned, Linda started screaming louder. I came all this way to see you, Emily. Why won't you talk to me? I'm your mother. 2 hours by train. Just to humiliate me in front of co-workers and strangers. If shame were currency, she was bankrupt and overdrafted. The police came. She tried to tell them she was just visiting family, but they'd seen this kind of thing before. She was removed calmly, firmly. Frank picked her up from the precinct. Ryan got home that night, already knowing what had happened. They called me from the station, he said. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied, even though my hands still felt cold. But she's done. I mean it. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Frank stood outside. Linda beside him, small, stone-faced, and quiet for once. I know it's late, Frank said. But could we talk? Ryan looked at me. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside to let them in. Once seated, Frank bowed his head. I failed to stop her, and I failed to protect you from her behavior. I'm truly sorry. It's not your fault, I replied. But my eyes were already on Linda. Frank nudged her. Say it. You owe her that much. Linda dipped her head slightly. I'm sorry. It sounded like an afterthought, a line fed by obligation. I stayed silent for a moment, then spoke. So tell Maui, did you serve microwave dinners to me and my mom while the rest of the table had $50 steak boxes from Oak and Vine? Linda looked up, surprised by the directness. I didn't want to be rude by giving you nothing. So your version of not rude was to single us out in front of everyone? She didn't answer, but Frank did. She told me she wanted to remind you where you stand. I nodded slowly. Good, because I haven't forgotten. She thought the TV dinners were subtle humiliation, but her downfall wouldn't be loud, it would be long, quiet, and permanent. And this time, I wasn't going to clean up after her. You've misunderstood what the word rude actually means, Frank said, his voice suddenly sharp, more forceful than I'd ever heard. What? I just thought, Linda began. No. Enough. He cut her off like a surgeon closing a wound. You don't seem to realize what you've done. She shrank slightly under his gaze, startled by the shift. But I'd seen this before. The performance, the pretend confusion. She only flinched when power shifted, not from guilt, but from fear of losing control. Frank kept going. You humiliated our daughter-in-law, in front of her mother, in front of her uncle, in our home. She's supposed to serve her husband's family. That's how I was raised, she replied, tone suddenly icy. I was just teaching her what it means to be a proper wife. So that was her defense. Tradition. My stomach twisted. By that logic, I should have handed you a mop and told you to clean my kitchen when you came to visit us in Chicago. Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. But Frank wasn't finished. Her uncle, he said slowly, is the owner of the restaurant group that revived our business. You do remember that, don't you? Linda's face twitched. So, he's a key supplier, one of our largest clients, a client you insulted in the middle of a family gathering. She blinked, as if realizing, too late, that the power dynamics had shifted permanently. Please, we'll survive if we lose 1 or 2 clients. Frank's voice dropped. That's not how business works. We were barely breaking even before Joe stepped in. You think goodwill grows on trees? Ryan exhaled, long and tired. Mom, Dad's been pulling our family through, not floating on some endless cushion of wealth. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd act entitled to whatever we had left. He looked at me, and then back at her. Emily approached Joe on our behalf. She didn't have to, but she did, and she saved this family more than you ever will. Linda looked like she might cry, but I'd seen those tears before. They were theater. Frank's voice softened, but only slightly. You owe her more than an apology. You owe her your respect. Linda clenched her jaw, and I could see the resistance still bubbling under her skin. But I wasn't done. That reminds me, I said, smiling. We'll be reducing the remittance moving forward. Frank turned to me, surprised. You mean the $1,500? No, the $3,000. Ryan's also been paying $1,500 for his old tuition debts, except they were never yours to collect. They were already paid by you, weren't they? Linda froze. Ryan nodded. The money should have gone to Dad all along. Frank looked at her, betrayal coloring his expression. You lied to me? There was no answer, just silence. Her palms pressed against her skirt, sweating. Next time, I said gently, if you're struggling, ask. Don't manipulate. Don't stage drama in front of my co-workers. And don't feed my mother TV dinners while you eat filet mignon. Her pride was finally quiet. And for once, so was the room. Frank's face turned ashen the second he heard the word remittance. Wait a minute, he said, slowly, turning toward Linda. What does she mean by remittance? I've been giving you a monthly budget. Linda blinked fast, her voice brittle. I just asked Ryan for a little help, that's all. It's not like I did anything wrong. A little help, I echoed, barely containing myself. You've been taking $1,500 a month from Ryan for living expenses. On top of the $1,500 tuition repayment, he's been wiring to what he thought was Frank's account. Frank narrowed his eyes. That money was never deposited in my account. Linda glanced down. Well, it's all the same household, isn't it? No, Ryan said flatly. It's not. She shifted, still trying to play innocent. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Frank stood. So let me get this straight. You pocketed money behind my back, guilt-tripped my son into doubling his support, and never mentioned a word of it. That's theft, Linda. Her lips curled. How dare you call it theft? It's family. There's a legal term for that, family borrowing. Actually, I interjected, there's a legal term for it too, embezzlement. Especially if you've been spending it on things unrelated to the household. Her face paled. Ryan folded his arms. So, Mom, where did it go? The extra $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. What exactly required that much help? She started, but Frank raised a hand. I want to see the bank book. Now, if you touch my account, that's my right. Linda tried to protest, but it was too late. Frank's voice was calm but lethal. If you can't explain it, we're going to the police. Police, she screeched. You'd really go that far? I'm your wife. He stared at her, cold and unblinking. I thought you were. But wives don't steal from husbands, and mothers don't manipulate their sons. My voice was low but steady. Also, wives don't serve microwavable trays to their daughter-in-law and her mother while hoarding premium steak boxes for themselves. Linda's face twisted, cornered but still clawing. Ryan, she hissed, you're really going to let her say this? I'm not letting her say anything, he replied. She's telling the truth. Something you should try for once. There was a pause, dense and damning, and then Linda did something I hadn't expected. She laughed, a hollow, strained sound. Fine. Yes, I used the money, not for anything bad. Just things I needed. Frank's eyes narrowed. Like what? And suddenly I saw a flash of fear. The exact moment she realized we might already know. About Jason. About the rooftop bar. About the hotel charges buried in that account. I almost let it go. Almost. But then I remembered my mother sitting there with a cold tray of rubbery pasta. Humiliated. Would you like me to show the receipts? I asked sweetly. Or should I let Uncle Joe do it for me? Linda went silent. The room didn't. You don't know anything, Linda snapped. You don't live here. You don't help with housework. You have no right to speak. That has nothing to do with this, I said calmly. Housework isn't currency for respect. It is if you want to be part of the family, she barked. Otherwise, stay in your lane. The room fell still. The words echoed like a slap. Ryan's jaw clenched, but I spoke first. Maybe I haven't been close, I said. But distance doesn't erase facts. Her face tightened. She didn't know what was coming. I decided that was the moment to drop a truth, sharp and cold. I think we both know where the money really went. Linda blinked, clearly thrown off. What are you implying? Affair, I said. With a younger man. Sound familiar? Her complexion shifted. Just for a second to know I'd hit the mark. You're being ridiculous, she scoffed. Don't spread lies. It's not a lie, I said, pulling out my phone. It's a photo, taken at a rooftop bar in downtown Chicago. Recognize the man? I handed the phone to Frank first. The image was clear. Linda, laughing over cocktails with a man who looked barely 30. The skyline behind them glowed like a confession. What is this? Frank's voice was too even. Linda rushed forward, voice panicked. This is nothing. Just a friend. That's a pretty intimate conversation for just a friend, Ryan said, his voice flat. She lunged at me, then grabbed my wrist with more force than I expected. I stepped back, half hiding behind Ryan. He blocked her instinctively. Enough, he barked. You don't touch her. I won't be slandered like this, she yelled. Slandered? Frank took the phone from Ryan. Emily, where did you get this? My uncle, I said. She and her friend were drinking at Joe's Grill. Security footage caught it. He didn't want to get involved, so he asked me to bring it up when the time was right. Linda looked like she'd swallowed a nail. Frank stared at the photo for a long time. Then, slowly, looked at her. So, you've been taking money from Ryan, spending it on someone else. It's not what it looks like, she said. Then explain it, Frank replied, sharp. Give me his name. Tell me where he works. Show me a single reason I shouldn't walk out this door tonight. She didn't answer. Ryan spoke up. She's been manipulating us. Guilt, money, control, all while lying to your face. I stepped forward and feeding my mother microwave food while she orders herself steak. Linda's voice cracked. You're all turning on me? No, I said. You just finally ran out of people to hide behind. And for the first time, Linda had no comeback. It wasn't just one affair. That's what we learned next. Ryan stood beside me, jaw locked, while Frank lowered himself into the nearest chair, like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. The more we pieced together, the clearer it became Melinda hadn't stumbled into temptation. She'd made a habit of it. Since he started working, Frank asked quietly. That long? Apparently, Ryan muttered. It's been going on for years. Different men, same pattern. And all conveniently funded once my paycheck started coming in. Linda didn't deny it. She crossed her arms and rolled her eyes. I just wanted to feel alive again. Frank stared at her like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. You're 60, Linda. And what? I'm supposed to give up on happiness because of my age? I finally found real love. Her eyes lit up like she was reciting a line from a cheap romance movie. The irony was suffocating. Real love, I said calmly. Funny, he didn't look too invested in the surveillance footage. She turned to me, seething. You wouldn't understand. You've never been adored the way I have. I opened my mouth, but Ryan beat me to it. You really think any of them loved you? He snapped. They loved your credit card, your sob stories, your desperation to feel 20 again. Her face tightened. How dare you talk to your own mother like that? You stopped being a mother the day you started draining your son's bank account to buy cocktails for strangers. She moved toward him, hand raised like she was going to shove him, slap him something. I stepped between them. That's enough. Stay out of this, she hissed. You've always hated me. Not hate, I replied. Just clarity. Frank finally stood up. Emily, do you have more? I nodded. One more thing. I pulled up another photo on my phone and passed it to him. A different location this time, mean old-fashioned bar. Tatami seating, cluttered with empty glasses and half-eaten food. A group photo. Linda's most recent soulmate laughing, arm draped casually round a woman in a work apron. There, I said, pointing. That guy. Recognize him? Frank leaned in. The same one from the rooftop bar? Yep. Turns out he works with a group that frequents my uncle's place. According to staff, he calls her his sugar source. Linda paled, visibly sinking back into the couch. Ryan crossed his arms. Still want to talk about true love? She didn't respond, just stared down at the floor like it might swallow her whole. Frank looked at her one last time, voice cold and tired. You've humiliated yourself. This marriage, this family. Then he turned to me. Thank you, Emily, for showing me what I didn't want to see. I gave a tight nod. I hadn't come here to destroy her, but if she was going to burn bridges, I wasn't going to stand in the smoke and pretend it smelled like roses. Sometimes the truth doesn't break a family, it sets it free. She sat across from me, silent now, but her eyes still searching for a way out, some way to twist the narrative. I didn't flinch. This was taken during an end-of-year party, I said, tapping the photo on my phone. Recognize the decor? It's not the rooftop bar. This time, it's a cozy little place with floor seating. Sound familiar? Linda shook her head, forcing a scoff. I don't go to places like that. Shame, I replied, because they remember you, loud and clear, especially the man sitting next to you, who described you to staff as his favorite ATM. Her eyes dropped, the bravado cracked, and then the tears came. Loud, messy, and uncontrolled. Not the kind that wins sympathy, but the kind that leave you wondering if they're for you, or just for show. Part of me almost pitied her. Almost. But I kept my voice steady. So all this time, you thought you were in love. He thought you were funding his beer tab. She sobbed harder. Frank looked away, disgusted. Ryan stood still, arms crossed, watching her fall apart without moving to catch her. Eventually, Frank stood. We're done. Wait, Frank. He didn't answer. He left the room, and she followed, half stumbling, trying to plead. But the door slammed harder than her apology. The next morning, we heard the news: Frank filed for divorce. No hesitation. The papers were signed within the week. Linda tried to stop it, of course. It wasn't an affair, she insisted. I was just a customer. He was a host, he was there to relax. The irony made my stomach turn. She had treated our relationship like a hierarchy, one she controlled through status, money, and shame. And now, she was being tossed aside by someone who didn't even pretend to love her. The lawyers didn't argue. Frank had evidence. And Linda? She had nothing but debt and a shattered fantasy. But she wasn't finished blaming me. 1 week later, she showed up at the same bar, eyes, that bar, screaming at me in front of customers, shoving glasses off the counter, accusing me of ruining her life. Police were called. She was arrested. Again. Now, she works 12-hour shifts at a place called Budget Meal Shack, boxing up greasy lunches for construction workers and students. It's not glamorous, but it suits her just fine. She used to demand premium steakhouse takeout. Now she's wrapping TV dinners for minimum wage. Karma didn't just knock, she moved in. A few weeks later, Ryan and I hosted another dinner. This time, just family, the kind that matters. Frank came, along with Uncle Joe. Everyone brought something. There was peace in the room, laughter, no performances. During dessert, my mother leaned in. Emily, she said softly, you're glowing. Is there something you haven't told us? I smiled. Actually, yes. I'm pregnant. Gasps, cheers, hugs. Even Frank's eyes welled up. And in that moment, I knew this family, this real, imperfect, healing family, it was finally mine.